Good afternoon, my name is Mary and I'm one of the health promotion practitioners from Here for Health. I'm joined by my colleague Emma, who will be supporting in the delivery of today's Wellbeing webinar. We're happy to be working in partnership with the psychological medicines team to deliver these. This webinar is being recorded to allow those who aren't able to join us live to watch at a later date. We'll stop recording towards the end to allow for any questions or comments. So please do pop these in the chat function as we go, and we'll aim to answer these as we're going through or towards the end. So for the benefit of those who might not have had a chance to tune into these webinars yet, Here for Health is a health improvement service within OUH, supporting staff, patients and visitors on a one-to-one basis. We take a holistic, person-centred approach to guide individuals through identifying what matters most to them and developing a personalised health and wellbeing plan, which includes signposting or referral to further resources and community support. To find out more, please do visit our website or get in touch via phone or email. So the theme of today's wellbeing webinar is eating for self-care. So we're going to take a look at what that might mean or look like for us, how we might develop a regular approach to eating, including a variety of foods, and eating for pleasure and satisfaction. When we consider the phrase eating for self-care, it's important to recognise that this will look different for everybody. Food and eating is a very personal thing to each of us and can also be context dependent. We're all unique, so our self-care practices will reflect that. These practices can also change depending on what we might have going on or how we're feeling, so it can be useful to check in with ourselves regularly to understand how we might be able to best meet our needs. Food and eating serves a variety of roles, meets a range of needs, and is influenced by many things such as social, cultural, and emotional factors, as well as things like access, budget, values, taste, to name a few. So it's really useful to keep these in mind as we consider our approaches to eating. Therefore, as we explore a few aspects of eating for self-care this afternoon, I invite you to navigate these with kindness and compassion for your personal situation, taking from this webinar what you feel might be most useful for you and leaving behind what might not feel so useful right now. Hopefully, the webinar today will demonstrate how eating for self-care may have the potential to feel connected, balanced, dynamic, supportive, context dependent, nourishing, personal, includes a variety of foods, is flexible and can take many forms. You may wish to use this time today and the prompts used in this webinar to privately reflect on your current eating experiences. So this brings us to our first principle, which is eating regularly. So eating regularly can have a variety of benefits, such as allows us to provide energy for our bodies across the day and support stable blood glucose levels, an opportunity to provide the body with nutrients it needs to function effectively, which might be harder to obtain when we eat less frequently across the day. It can support in more manageable experiences of hunger and fullness, and we can also feel more resilient when our brains and bodies are well fueled. With this in mind, what might a regular eating pattern look like? So broadly speaking, this could look like eating a meal or snack every 3 to 4 hours, having 3 meals and 2 to 3 snacks across the day, and for shift workers this would be within a 24-hour period. So what things might support us in eating regularly? Ensuring we have foods available to us across the day. So this could range from writing a shopping list and doing a regular food shop to make sure we've got options at home or to bring to work, or to consider where we might be able to get food from when we're out and about. Planning meals can be useful to consider. This doesn't have to mean having a rigid structure, but having some idea of what meals might find satisfying to us and buying in advance can save time and energy instead of deciding what to have and buying it each day. If we are able to, preparing foods in advance can help to ensure we have food at home or on the go. So this could look like doing batch cooking at the weekend for meals to keep in the fridge or freezer, or it could look like making a breakfast or lunch the night before work to take with us. If this sounds like a little bit too much right now, are there any ways that we might be able to start smaller, such as filling a water bottle or packing a snack for during the day or on our way home? Establishing an eating pattern can also support us in eating regularly. So we might consider making time for breakfast, ensuring we're able to take a break across a working day, and having an evening meal once we return home. Something else that we may wish to consider as well is tuning into our hunger and fullness signals. So whilst we might already know what feeling very hungry or feeling very full might feel like, being able to tune into and notice some of the more subtle feelings of hunger and fullness can support us in identifying when having meals and snacks across the day might best support our energy levels. So first of all, recognizing how physical hunger might show up for us. Doing a quick body scan, this could include our head. We might feel lightheaded, struggling to concentrate or distracted. Our bodies could feel shaky or weak. Our mood might be irritable or the infamous feelings of hunger. We might notice our energy levels feel low and we might feel fatigued or sluggish. And in our stomachs, we might notice a gurgling, rumbling or gnawing. From there, we might like to think about how these different sensations show up for us along a continuum of hunger and fullness. And using something called a hunger and fullness gauge can be really useful to use as a tool rather than a rule to help inform our eating. So as a guide, if we were to consider 0 being really, really hungry, feeling all of those signals of hunger that we just mentioned, and 10 being really, really full, if we can aim to start and finish our meals before reaching these points, it can support in more comfortable experiences. For example, if we were to rate our hunger as a 3 or a gentle level of hunger, this might be time for us to consider having a meal or snack. And what we can find is if we do get down towards a 0 or a 1, we might start to notice how this impacts on our energy levels or our ability to concentrate, and can also impact on the choices we make in relation to what or how much we might have to eat. On the other end of the continuum, when we get to around a 7, or what we might call a comfortable level of fullness, this can be an indicator that we might have had enough to eat. And we might notice some of the following sensations. So our mood, we might feel more content or satisfied. Our stomach might feel gently full or perhaps slightly bloated. We might notice some gurgling or digesting. And our bodies, we might notice that we're no longer as interested in food. We might find that our cravings reduce and our eating might slow down. If we do find ourselves eating past the point of comfortable fullness, it's important not to be too hard on ourselves. We may wish to perhaps reflect on what's been going on for us across the day, such as how long it's been since we were last able to eat, how satisfying our last meal or snack was that we had, and whether anything else might have happened. Being able to tune into these bodily sensations is something called interoceptive awareness. This awareness can help to give us clues and information as to what our biological and physiological needs might be. Interoceptive awareness can take time to develop and explore, so it's important we do this with curiosity, compassion, and without judgment. As a first step, if you're wishing to explore this today, you might like to think about where you would place your current feelings of hunger and fullness using this gauge. When exploring our hunger and fullness cues, we might find that there are reasons we eat aside from physical hunger, such as habitual, social, environmental, or emotional reasons. These experiences are very normal and happen to all of us. Whilst addressing some of these different types of hunger can be a little bit more complicated, once we start to be aware of the different reasons for eating, this can give us space to notice what our bodies might be needing in these moments. And we might like to use the following questions as prompts. So for physical hunger, this could include, how hungry am I? How full do I want to be when I finish eating? What foods will satisfy me and what might I be able to add to make it a balanced meal? If what we notice might be an other kind of hunger, the following prompts might be useful. What is it that I'm feeling? what might I need in this moment, and how can I take care of myself in this moment? And again, noticing these with curiosity and compassion. So next we come on to eating a variety of foods. So we know that eating a varied diet can help to ensure we include the range of nutrients that our body needs to function effectively. So here is an example of a guide called the Eat Well Guide, which is a general guide of the different food groups we can aim to include within our diet that supports balance, variety, and flexibility. Each and every single meal we have doesn't need to reflect this, or even within a day. Rather, balance is achieved over the course of days, weeks, and months. You might not see all of the foods you typically eat within this guide or picture, but the Eat Well Guide can be easily adapted for cultural variations, and there are also vegetarian and vegan Eat Well Guides available. If this is something you'd like to explore further, please do feel free to get in touch with our team. Some of you may already be familiar with the Eat Well Guide, but for those who may be less so, it recommends the following. To include starchy carbohydrates, which can serve as an important source of energy for our body and brain, and usually makes up just over a third of the food we eat. It includes foods such as bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, cereals, oats, noodles, yams, or plantains. And we can opt for whole grain varieties such as whole grain pasta or brown rice, or leaving the skin on potatoes to increase fibre content. And we might like to consider aiming to include one food from these groups at meal times. The next largest group is fruit and vegetables. So we know these foods provide essential vitamins and minerals and a source of fibre. So we can aim to include 5 portions a day. And if we eat a rainbow of colours of fruit and vegetables, this can support including a greater variety of nutrients. So fresh, frozen, dried and tinned foods all count, and for juices and smoothies up to 150 millilitres counts as a portion. Some ideas to include more fruit and veg in our diet might include adding a banana to cereal, berries to yoghurt, adding black beans or lentils to chili or a bolognese, or bulking out our evening meals with frozen veg. The next group is protein. So protein provides sources of vitamins and minerals and contributes to aiding growth and repair in the body. It includes foods such as beans, pulses, eggs, fish, meat, and meat alternatives. And generally speaking, we might aim to include 2 to 3 portions across a day. For those that do eat meat, opting for leaner cuts of meat or to consume less red and processed meat could be things to consider here. The next group is dairy and dairy alternatives. So these can provide a source of calcium supporting bone health. For dairy alternatives, opting for calcium fortified products can be useful. And we might aim to include 3 portions a day. So that might look like a small pot of yogurt, half a pint of milk, or a small matchbox sized piece of cheese. Then lastly, we have fats. So a small amount of fat is essential as part of a healthy, balanced diet. It's a source of essential fatty acids that the body can't make itself, and fat can help the body absorb fat-soluble vitamins. Broadly speaking, we should aim to reduce our consumption of saturated fat whilst including small amounts of unsaturated fat in our diet, which can support our heart health. So here we might like to opt for foods such as olive, rapeseed or sunflower oil, nuts and seeds, avocado or oily fish. In terms of fluid, we know that dehydration can lead to feelings of fatigue, lethargy and difficulties in concentrating. So we might aim to drink 6 to 8 glasses of fluid or 1.5 to 2 litres per day. Water, lower fat milk, sugar-free drinks and things like tea and coffee all count towards that intake. Now, the Eat Well Guide states that foods that are higher in fat, sugar and salt aren't an essential part of the diet, and we should aim to include these less often and in smaller amounts. Here, it might be useful to think about how you might feel if you were to only eat these foods all of the time. How might it impact on our energy, our mood, or even our bowels? We might notice that eating too much of these foods too often might not make us feel so great. In contrast, if we were to never include these foods in our diet and felt like we were depriving ourselves of these foods, we may find ourselves thinking about these foods more often. And when we do have access to these foods, we may experience that it feels more challenging to eat these foods in moderation. This is where it's important to find a balance that feels right for you. Developing a mindful awareness of how often we eat these foods, how much we have of these foods, and how these foods leave us feeling can serve as a few prompts to guide our decisions. So the Eat Well guide can serve as the following prompts for deciding what we might like to eat when we're cooking or preparing meals at home, when we're eating out and about, whilst we're food shopping, or as a useful tool to reflect on the variety of foods that we include in our diet over time. And we might like to think that through using the Eat Well guide, what is it that I could add to my next meal, snack, or food shop to support in eating a varied, balanced diet? So whilst the nutrients we obtain from foods are an important element in supporting our health, it's also important to reflect on the other roles that food and eating serves, including for pleasure and satisfaction. Whether it's choosing a hot steamy stew on a cold winter's day, a refreshing ice lolly on a hot summer's day, or chatting with neighbours whilst getting fish and chips from your local fish and chip van, there's a real richness to our eating experiences that would make it a shame to reduce food purely down to its nutrients. Thinking about the different ways we can account for eating for pleasure can help to support a positive experience with food. And a few things we may wish to consider includes exploring our preferences and eating experience. So the following prompts can be used to explore our preferences and can help guide what it is that we may like to eat. As we go through these prompts, do feel free to share your own preferences, your favourite meals or snacks or ideas that you may have to include pleasure and satisfaction to your meals. So for flavour, do we prefer plain foods or foods with lots of flavour? A single flavour or a combination? Bold or more subtle flavours? A combination of flavours or a contrast? And do your flavour preferences change across the day? What might your favourite cuisine be? Or are there any herbs or spices you could add to your meals to add more flavour? For texture, do we like foods that are crunchy, smooth, creamy, hard, soft, mashed, crispy, chewy, or toasted? Does this preference change over the day? Do you like to include a variety of textures in each meal? So as we mentioned earlier, for temperature, in winter we might tend to prefer kind of hot steaming bowls of stew or soup, whereas in summer we might prefer to opt for more refreshing options like watermelon, bean salads, or ice cream. Also in terms of temperature, we might prefer to eat our food straight out of the fridge or prefer it when it comes to room temperature. And there might be certain meals that we prefer to have hot or cold. If a food smells good, the chances are it will taste good too. So we might like to consider aroma as well when we're thinking about meals or snacks. Which foods smell good to you? Which ones might be uninteresting or perhaps do we dislike? In terms of appearance, our meals don't need to be recipe book perfect every time, but sometimes paying a little attention to the appearance of our meals can make them more satisfying. So this might include including a variety of textures, flavours and colours, using different cooking methods. Garnishes can be a quick and easy way to have an impact on a meal, so such as adding chives or coriander, sesame seeds or chili flakes to meals, might help to enhance the appearance. And whilst it wouldn't be realistic to get creative for every single meal, are there one or two things that you might like to change or try across the week to increase variety? So for example, this could be adding different toppings to cereal or porridge, trying a different sandwich or salad filling at lunch, a new flavour of soup, or trying different sauces with evening meals. So these are just some considerations that can help us to identify what meals might bring us satisfaction, what new recipes we might wish to try, or even what meals we already have in our repertoire we might wish to have more often. And lastly, we can also consider our eating experience, as this can have an impact on the satisfaction we get from meals. So how many of us might eat whilst we're standing up, on the go, or at our desk? Perhaps we might eat whilst we're watching TV or scrolling through our phones. How many meals do you reckon you might eat whilst you're distracted? Eating with minimal distractions, such as sitting at a table, turning off the TV, putting our phones or laptops away, can support us in really tasting, appreciating, and finding satisfaction in our food, even if we were to just start with the first or last bite of our meal distraction-free. It can also help us to tune into those hunger and fullness cues that we mentioned earlier. And you might wish to consider the preference prompts we just explored on the last slide to notice what we might taste when we have our meals and snacks. We can also make eating an occasion by finding fun in the little things around meals. So this might be setting the table, playing relaxing music, making a favourite meal, or planning a socially distanced outdoors weekend picnic. Eating with another or in a group can help to facilitate connection and provide an opportunity to socialise. Meals are valuable social events that can help bring people together. So as COVID restrictions start to ease, whether it might be taking time to eat lunch with a colleague or planning a meal together with friends and family, these might be things to look forward to. So following what we have covered today, you might like to use the following questions to guide your reflections on your current way of eating. Does my approach to eating include regular meals and snacks? Include a variety of foods? Include foods for pleasure and satisfaction? Or we might like to reflect on, is this how I would choose to feed a loved one or a friend in need? And from there, are there any changes you might like to consider making to your eating now, perhaps at your next meal, snack, or next time you go food shopping? We are aware that over the past year, there has been an increase in the number of people struggling with their relationship with food. If you or someone you know might be struggling, please do reach out to your GP or a healthcare professional, or you might wish to visit the BEAT website for further information and support. In addition, over this past year, there have been more individuals who have not had the same access to food as they might have previously done. Across Oxfordshire, there are many ways of accessing free or low-cost food. This includes from community fridges and larders, community support groups, and food banks. Within Oxfordshire, there is a food services map and database of services to make it easier to identify what is available across the county. If you're interested in exploring or learning more around nutrition, you might find the following resources useful. There's the British Dietetic Association Food Fact Sheets, the British Nutrition Foundation website, or on the NHS website you can find more information about the Eat Well Guide. So this brings us towards the end of today's Wellbeing webinar. We'd like to thank you for your time in attending today and look forward to delivering future webinars and seeing you again soon. Please do feel free to use the following contact methods on screen if you would like to find out more about the support that we can offer. Thank you.